The Cleveland Browns are actively destroying their own franchise from the inside, and their best player is watching it happen in real time. Myles Garrett, one of the most dominant defensive players in the entire National Football League, is sitting in these coaching interviews witnessing an absolute clown show that would make a circus jealous. And folks, I'm telling you right now, this man is about to demand another trade if this dysfunction doesn't get fixed immediately. This isn't speculation. This isn't rumor. This is a legitimate crisis brewing in Cleveland, and it's only getting worse by the day. Let me set the scene for you, because what's happening right now in that Browns facility is beyond comprehension. The Browns, in a rare moment of actual smart decision-making, decided to let Myles Garrett sit in on the head coaching interviews. This is the same approach the Buffalo Bills took with Josh Allen, and it makes complete sense. Your franchise cornerstone, your best player, the guy who has to go to war with this coach every single Sunday, should have a voice in who gets hired. That part? Brilliant. What happens once Myles Garrett actually sits in those interviews? That's where this whole thing goes completely off the rails and turns into an embarrassment that's resonating throughout the entire NFL. Myles Garrett has already made his preference crystal clear. He wants Jim Schwartz as the head coach. Denzel Ward agrees with him. These are two of the best players on the team, guys who have been in the trenches, who understand what it takes to win in this league, and they're telling ownership and management exactly who they think should lead this team. Jim Schwartz has been in that building for years. He knows the personnel, he knows the division, he's a proven defensive mind, and he has the respect of the locker room. But apparently that's not good enough for Andrew Berry and Jimmy Haslam. Oh no, they need to see how these coaching candidates perform on personality tests and multi-part essays first. Yes, you heard that correctly. The Cleveland Browns are making NFL coaching candidates write essays. Not just any essays either. We're talking multi-part essays, questionnaires, homework assignments between the first and second rounds of interviews, and personality tests that would make a corporate HR department blush. This isn't a job interview for one of the most important positions in professional sports. This is the damn SATs. This is college admissions. This is absolutely insane, and Myles Garrett is sitting there watching grown men with decades of coaching experience being asked to jump through these ridiculous hoops like they're applying for an entry-level internship. Now let me tell you why this is so much worse than it sounds on the surface. Mike McDaniel, the current head coach of the Miami Dolphins, was initially interested in interviewing with Cleveland. This is a guy who has proven he can run an NFL offense, who has experience at the highest level, who could potentially be exactly what the Browns need. He did his initial Zoom interview with Cleveland, got a taste of their process, and immediately said, "Hell no, I'm out." He withdrew from consideration faster than you can say dysfunctional organization. Think about that for a second. A successful NFL head coach took one look at what Cleveland was asking him to do and decided he'd rather stay in Miami or wait for literally any other opportunity than deal with the Browns' nonsense. And it's not just Mike McDaniel. Multiple coaching candidates have turned down second interviews with Cleveland. Mentors of potential candidates are advising their guys to stay away. Word is spreading around the league faster than a wildfire, and that word is simple. The Browns are a disaster, and their hiring process is a joke. John Harbaugh, one of the most respected coaches in the NFL, never even considered Cleveland. Why would he? The man has won a Super Bowl. He's built a championship culture in Baltimore, and he's supposed to show up in Cleveland and write an essay about why he wants the job. Get the hell out of here with that nonsense. Brian Baldinger, a respected NFL analyst and former player, was asked about this whole essay writing situation, and his response was perfect. He said he's never heard of anything like this in all his years around the NFL. He has no idea what the purpose of writing essays would have to do with leading a football team. If a coach can't articulate his vision sitting face-to-face in an interview, how is making him write it down going to change anything? It's a brilliant point that exposes just how absurd Cleveland's process really is. Football is not a written test. Football is not a personality profile. Football is a human sport that requires leadership, instinct, adaptability, and the ability to inspire and motivate grown men to run through brick walls for you. None of that can be measured by a Scantron test or a homework assignment. But here's where it gets really disturbing for Myles Garrett and the future of this franchise. Tom Pelissero, one of the most plugged-in NFL insiders in the business, broke down exactly what Cleveland is looking for in a head coach, and it should terrify every Browns fan. They're looking for tall, thin guys who came from Ivy League schools and fit into their data-driven environment. Let me repeat that. Tall, thin, Ivy League guys who test well. That's the profile. Not guys who can coach, not guys who have proven track records of developing players and winning games, not guys who command respect in a locker room. No, they want guys who look good on paper and score well on their ridiculous tests. This is Paul DePodesta's influence all over this organization. For those who don't know, DePodesta came to Cleveland 10 years ago and built out a massive data and analytics department that apparently has more say in football decisions than actual football people. Now look, I'm not completely anti-analytics. Data has its place in the modern NFL. But when your analytics department is more influential than your coaches, when you're making personnel decisions based on personality tests and essays rather than actual football acumen and leadership ability, you've completely lost the plot. Myles Garrett is watching all of this unfold with his own eyes, and you better believe he's keeping receipts. This is a man who already demanded a trade once before. He's one of the premier defensive players in the entire league. He could play anywhere he wants. And if the Browns continue down this path of organizational dysfunction, if they hire some analytics darling who can't actually coach but tested really well on the personality assessment, Myles Garrett is going to demand out of Cleveland faster than you can say, "I told you so." Think about what this means from Garrett's perspective. He's in the prime of his career. He's giving everything he has on that football field every single Sunday. He's one of the most dominant pass rushers in the game, a guy who opposing offenses have to game plan around, a legitimate superstar. And his organization is more concerned with whether coaching candidates can write a good essay than whether they can actually lead a football team to wins. How is that not infuriating? How is that not a slap in the face to every player in that locker room who's busting their ass while the front office is up there playing fantasy football with personality tests? The interview process that Cleveland is running is so bizarre, so unnecessarily complicated, so divorced from actual football reality that it's become a punchline around the league. Other teams are looking at what the Browns are doing and laughing. Agents are telling their coaching clients to avoid Cleveland like the plague. And Myles Garrett is sitting in the middle of all this, watching his franchise become the laughingstock of the NFL. And you expect him to just smile and nod and pretend everything is fine? Come on. Let's talk about the specific candidates they're supposedly interested in. Grant Udinski, who just turned 30 years old and is in his first year as an offensive coordinator. Nathan Skillhouse from the Rams, who's never been an NFL coordinator. These are the guys Cleveland is supposedly most intrigued by, and why? Because they fit the profile. Because they're young, they're considered analytically minded, and they presumably did well on whatever ridiculous homework assignments the Browns gave them. But here's the question that apparently nobody in Cleveland is asking. Can these guys actually coach? Jim Schwartz is sitting right there in the building. He's been the defensive coordinator for years. He's proven, he's respected. Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward are literally telling ownership, this is the guy we want. But that's not good enough because Jim Schwartz probably doesn't want to waste his time writing multi-part essays for a 37-year-old general manager about why he knows football after spending decades in the NFL. Can you imagine? A man who's almost 60 years old, who has been a head coach before, who has forgotten more about football than most people will ever know, being asked to fill out questionnaires and personality tests to prove himself to an analytics department, it's insulting. It's embarrassing. It's the Cleveland Browns being the Cleveland Browns. The patience that Cleveland media and fans have shown because of Kevin Stefanski's 6-year tenure is about to run out completely. And here's the thing. We're now finding out that Stefanski probably went through this same ridiculous process when he was hired. That means DePodesta has been running this play for years, and it hasn't produced a championship. It hasn't produced sustained success. It's just produced a revolving door of coaches and continued mediocrity. At some point, you have to look at the results and admit that your process is flawed. Football is such a human sport. There are so many variables, so many intangibles, so many things that happen on the field that can't be predicted by a computer model or captured in a personality test. Did a defensive back really miss his coverage, or was he covering for a teammate who blew his assignment? That kind of nuance, that kind of real-time decision-making and understanding of the game can't be measured by analytics. It requires football intelligence, experience, and instinct. But Cleveland has convinced themselves that they're smarter than everyone else, that their data-driven approach will uncover some hidden genius that other teams missed. Meanwhile, they're driving away proven coaches and alienating their best players in the process. Myles Garrett didn't sign up for this. He didn't agree to spend the prime years of his career watching his organization embarrass itself with a hiring process that's become a league-wide joke. He's a competitor who wants to win, who deserves to be part of a functional organization that makes smart decisions based on football knowledge rather than Scantron tests. And if the Browns don't get their act together soon, they're going to lose him. Not because he doesn't love Cleveland or doesn't want to be there, but because he can't waste his career waiting for an organization to figure out what every other team in the league already knows. You hire coaches who can coach, not candidates who test well. The embarrassment factor here cannot be overstated. When Brian Baldinger, a guy who's been around the NFL forever, says he's never heard of anything like this, that tells you everything you need to know. When respected coaches are withdrawing from consideration after one conversation with Cleveland, that's a red flag the size of Texas. When agents are steering their clients away from your organization, you have a serious problem. And when your best player is sitting in interviews, watching this circus firsthand and getting visibly frustrated, you're on the verge of a complete organizational crisis. Here's what really kills me about this whole situation. The Browns actually have some talent on that roster. Myles Garrett is one of the best defensive players in football. They've got pieces on offense. They've got a young roster with potential. But none of that matters if the organization making the decisions is fundamentally broken. You can have all the talent in the world, but if your front office is more interested in personality tests than actual coaching ability, if your analytics department has more influence than your football people, if your hiring process drives away quality candidates, you're never going to win anything that matters. The comparison to Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills is particularly painful for Cleveland. The Bills did it right. They let their franchise quarterback sit in on interviews. They found a coach who fit what they were trying to build. They made a smart, football-focused decision without all the ridiculous bells and whistles. And where are the Bills now? Competing for championships. Where are the Browns? Still looking for a head coach a month after firing the last one, making candidates write essays and watching their best player get more frustrated by the day. Mike McDaniel dodged a bullet by withdrawing from Cleveland's process. The man is now back in the mix for the Buffalo Bills job, and you better believe he's not being asked to write any essays there. The Bills respect his experience, they value his football knowledge, and they're treating him like the proven NFL coach that he is. Meanwhile, Cleveland is treating coaching candidates like college applicants, and then wondering why nobody wants the job. The multi-part essay requirement is particularly galling. What exactly are they asking these coaches to write about? In 500 words or less, explain why analytics should override football instinct. Write a personal statement about your love of data-driven decision-making? It's absurd. These are accomplished professionals who have spent their entire lives in football, and Cleveland is making them prove themselves with written assignments like they're high school students. And let's be honest about what this really reveals. The Browns don't trust their own judgment. They don't trust their ability to sit across from a coaching candidate and evaluate whether that person can lead their team. So instead, they've created this elaborate system of tests and homework and personality profiles because they think that will somehow give them better information than an actual face-to-face conversation with a football lifer. It's overthinking to the point of paralysis, and it's costing them quality candidates and credibility around the league. Myles Garrett has every right to be pissed off. He's watching his organization prioritize process over results, data over instinct, and written tests over proven coaching ability. He's seeing quality coaches run away from Cleveland because they don't want to deal with this nonsense. He's being told that his opinion about wanting Jim Schwartz matters, but then watching the front office ignore him in favor of whatever candidate scores highest on their ridiculous evaluations. How long is he supposed to put up with that? The man already asked for a trade once. He knows what it's like to be frustrated with organizational dysfunction. And if this coaching search doesn't end with a quality hire who can actually lead this team, if it ends with some analytics darling who tested well but can't coach his way out of a paper bag, Myles Garrett is going to ask out again. And this time, the Browns won't have any excuse. They'll have driven away one of the best players in franchise history because they were more concerned with essays and personality tests than actually winning football games. The scary part is that Cleveland doesn't seem to understand how bad this looks. Jimmy Haslam apparently bristles at the characterization of the Browns as dysfunctional. But what else would you call an organization that makes coaching candidates write multi-part essays? What else would you call a team that's been searching for a head coach for a month while other teams filled their positions in days? What else would you call a front office that's driving away quality candidates with an unnecessarily complicated process that nobody else in the league uses? This is bad. This is really bad. And it's not just bad for the current coaching search. It's bad for the future of the franchise. It's bad for player morale. It's bad for Cleveland's reputation around the league. It's bad for their ability to attract free agents and coaching talent going forward. Word travels fast in the NFL, and the word on Cleveland right now is that they're a dysfunctional organization with a bizarre hiring process that treats coaching candidates like they're pledging a fraternity. Myles Garrett deserves better. The Browns fans deserve better. Hell, even the coaching candidates who are being put through this ridiculous process deserve better. Everyone involved in this situation deserves an organization that understands what actually matters in the NFL. Football knowledge, leadership ability, player development, and the capability to win games. Not how well you can write an essay or score on a personality test. So here we are, watching one of the NFL's premier defensive players get increasingly frustrated with an organization that can't get out of its own way. Watching quality coaches withdraw from consideration because they don't want to deal with Cleveland's nonsense. Watching the Browns become a punchline once again, not because they're losing games, but because their front office has created a hiring process so absurd that it's become legendary for all the wrong reasons. The clock is ticking on this situation. Every day that goes by without a resolution is another day that Myles Garrett is thinking about whether he really wants to spend the rest of his prime years in Cleveland. Every quality candidate that withdraws from consideration is another indication that the Browns' reputation around the league is shot. Every detail that leaks about essays and homework assignments is another embarrassment that damages the franchise. If I'm Jimmy Haslam, I'm looking at this situation and asking myself some serious questions. Is our process working? Are we getting the results we want? Are we attracting the kind of talent we need? Are we keeping our best players happy? Because right now, the answer to all those questions is a resounding no. The process isn't working. The results are terrible. The talent is running away. And Myles Garrett is pissed off. This is the Cleveland Browns in 2025, folks. Still finding new ways to embarrass themselves, still prioritizing the wrong things, still driving away the people who could actually help them win. And their best player is sitting in the middle of it all, watching it happen, getting more frustrated by the day, and probably wondering how long he's supposed to tolerate this before he demands out and goes somewhere that actually knows what they're doing. The Browns are going to be the Browns. It's been that way for decades, and apparently it's going to stay that way for the foreseeable future. Because when you're making coaches write essays instead of evaluating their actual ability to coach football, you're not serious about winning. You're serious about justifying your analytics department and making yourself feel smart, but you're not serious about winning. And Myles Garrett knows it. The whole league knows it. And soon enough, everyone's going to know it when their best player asks for a trade again, and this whole dysfunctional circus starts over from scratch. All right, that's the truth, unfiltered and raw. Now I need to hear from you. Get down in the comments and let me know what you think about this absolute disaster. Should Myles Garrett demand a trade? Is Jim Schwartz the right choice? And how long before this whole thing completely falls apart? Don't hold back. Tell me exactly what's on your mind. If you made it all the way through this deep dive into Cleveland's dysfunction, Show some love by smashing that like button. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, because this story is far from over, and you know I'm going to be covering every insane development as it happens. Turn on those notifications so you don't miss a single update, because trust me, with the way things are going in Cleveland, there's going to be plenty more chaos to cover. Share this video with every Browns fan you know who needs to understand just how bad things really are. Until next time, keep the vision, stay informed, and remember, the Browns are going to Brown. Peace.